Hi, it's Finnabair here and I've got a new video for you. This time I wanted to create a project for Art Daily Cafe blog. Our inspiration for November 2019 is Poetry of Decay, and it is all about recycling. For my project, I decided to create a real keepsake. I've got a huge collection of found objects, a lot of elements that I keep buying on the flea market. I like picking up old photos, I like old books, boxes, covers, frames, and I've decided to try to alter old, very, very old wooden frame with a lot of lovely rusty elements. You can see even there are some woodworms marks, and I was thinking this is a perfect base for something that will be my family keepsake. When I decided to alter this old wooden frame, I really wanted to focus on recycling, which means I wanted to use a lot of found objects in the project instead of using tons of embellishments. First, when I was looking at the frame, I was trying to figure out what kind of elements I can fit on it, what kind of sizes do I need, and I was trying to go through all my rubbish boxes and pick up the most interesting items. I've decided to only pick a small bunch of embellishments, and they are going to be parts of the composition, not really the focal points. Some of my elements were really shiny and I didn't like that. I wanted the project to be really rustic and old looking, so I've painted some of my metal embellishments with a tiny bit of clear gesso, which is a perfect solution because it doesn't really change the color of the embellishments. You can only turn them matte, which is great because it's easier to paint them, and they will be just great for any kind of vintage composition. I only needed a very thin coat of the gesso, and then I was able to dry it with the heat gun. When the elements were dry, I started to create the composition using all the found objects I had on hand and quite generous portions of heavy body gel. Every time I was putting a lot of the gel to make sure the elements will stick to my frame, and I can always remove the excess of the gel if I want to with the brush, right? My assemblage is a composition of very interesting elements. It's not just the wooden frame, there are many mechanical parts, there are embellishments, but also old rusty metal pieces that I found somewhere, and then there are rusty nails or screws that are somewhere taken from the barn. Basically anything you have on hand may be used in your project as long as you know how to glue it down. I was adding more and more of the elements, and from time to time I use the heat gun to dry them, so it will be easier for me to add more of the layers. I was using my photo to measure how much spice I have, and I was trying to pick the most interesting elements for the composition. I don't really stop myself when it comes to choosing the elements. They may be old parts of the machine, but also old electronical parts. Anything that I find interesting or inspiring, it can go on my collage or my assemblage project. Finally, when most of the elements were in places, I decided to add some extra texture. For this purpose, I used 3D matte gel, which I mixed with a tiny bit of mini art stones to create a special texture paste I could apply in the selected parts of my project. It's going to imitate the look of really chunky rust. Once I applied it in the selected parts of the composition, mostly using my finger or a small brush, I was ready to dry it with the heat gun. Many of my embellishments and my frame, they were really dark in some places, and I wanted to brighten them a little bit with paint. So I took my Art Basics heavy white gesso and I dry brushed small amounts of the gesso in selected parts of the composition. That turned my elements a little bit lighter in color, but also matte, and they will accept the paint a bit easier than the natural metal or the rusty elements. After painting with gesso, I've decided I need extra texture touches, so I took soft gel, this time it was soft matte gel, and a small brush, and applied the soft gel in selected parts of the composition, because I wanted to stick more of the art stones in the parts of the composition where I had not enough texture. So after sprinkling art stones on the top, the texture was really beautiful and really visible. It's not really possible to save the art stones, so don't feel guilty when you're going to tap off the excess straight to your rubbish bin. It is okay. It was finally time for painting. I've decided to use liquid acrylics, which are glossy finish, super pigmented, a bit transparent acrylic paints. They are liquid, which means you can apply them easily with a small brush, and as long as they are wet, they will be reacting with water. So you can make them flow in the directions that you want, and you can easily mix them not only on the palette but also on the composition. So it's really up to you how you prefer to paint. I used really small brush and was adding darker colors to the composition. I decided to use ink black, carmine and tiger orange, so the colors which will be great imitation of the real rust. I was using really small brush and then my water sprayer to make sure the colors will flow. This way of painting is really rewarding, and you can repeat this process many times until you are happy with the results. I've also decided to use tiny bits of the same paint to add color to the piece of paper that was next to my photo. I just wanted to everything match nicely, and this way everything was coming together. I've added some splatters on my photo as well to make the old image look even more vintage, and again matching my rusty composition. I was able to dry the project easily with the heat gun, and there was no problem to blow directly on the photo as well. It was printed on good quality paper. In some parts of the projects I had a bit too much of the texture and the color was not visible the way I wanted it to be, so I started picking that up with my fingers and then experimenting with more of the paint to see if I will be able to see everything I wanted to be visible and dimensional. On some point, I even decided that I have to go back to gesso to make sure the interesting metal knob that I had under the photo is going to be more visible and more popping. So after adding the tiny bit of white gesso, it was easier for me to use brighter, more delicate colors of the liquid acrylics on the top of it, and I was much more happy with the result. For the final touches, I decided to use a tiny metal frame, which I painted a bit with liquid acrylics, and a sticker with the quote that I was thinking would match to the person that was on the picture. You can use the same kind of idea, just simply typing the text you like using your typewriter, or just print it on the paper using laser printing machine. When everything was in place, of course, I used heavy body gel to glue it down. I added one more accent, which was a tiny bit of the metal mesh that I found somewhere, and I was thinking it's going to be a lovely, mysterious accent on the whole composition. I decided to place it directly on the photo, and I've used part of the embellishments that I had there to hold it in place, but also on the other side I used the stapler. Finally, in my last step, I use a tiny bit of the Art Alchemy metallic waxes to highlight bits and pieces of my assemblage. I just wanted part of the metal to be a little bit more shiny and visible, and I mixed two colors. One was vintage gold and the second aged brass. Together they were very similar to the natural color of my mechanical parts, and I applied it with the small brush or simply with my fingers. This is the easiest way to do it. The waxes are permanent after drying, so I didn't have to do anything else once I finished playing with them. I just love using them on all of my projects to imitate the look of the real metal. After wax, my project was ready. I hope you enjoyed watching the whole process, and please forgive me all the imperfections because it was not planned as a tutorial. This is just simply step-by-step video taken when I was creating a project for myself. Of course, I was inspired by our daily cafe blog and the poetry of decay topic and the idea of recycling. I really love this kind of projects, and they come really straight from my heart and soul. This little frame is going to stay somewhere at my home. I'm going to put it on display together with other family photos, and I'm really happy with the result. It is still visible. All that wood, all that rust that is on the base of the project is very, very beautiful, and you can see it easily, but I was able to add some touches to it as well. I hope you enjoyed this kind of video, and I hope you're going to come back here in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell and leave a comment or the thumb up. It really helps, and if you want to make sure my videos will be visible for you, just don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I will be in touch with you on my social media, on my Instagram and Facebook, and if you would like to tell me something, if you would like to let me know what you think about the project, if you'd like to see more of this kind of videos, don't wait, just leave a comment. I am trying to read them all. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you again here soon.